He's just sniffing away. Well, good morning, YouTube. All right, it is Sunday morning, day 2 here, the Smoky Mountain Bike Week. Unfortunately, there's still some rain in the outlook. Doesn't look like it's going to be as bad as yesterday. And then once this is passed, it really should be nice. You know, I know I said that 2 days ago, but when that storm passed us originally, Helene decided to kind of take her left-hand hook, and it looped around and came back to Nashville. Doesn't that airplane know I'm trying to record right now? Anyway, now it's just kind of hovering above Nashville and like this counterclockwise spin, and the bands keep coming off of it and dousing us with rain. We've had enough. People of Asheville have definitely had enough. I don't know if you've kept up with the news, but Jersey Mike, he was supposed to come out here and work with us this week, and he's literally trapped. He cannot get out of town. There's no fuel. All of the roads are closed. I mean, every road out is closed. He even tried some of like the, you know, the Forest Service roads and everything, but there's so many trees down and whatnot. It's just impassable. And now he can't find fuel anywhere. Looks like Katie and I may end up having to work this one by ourselves, which is okay. It'll be a little rough. We haven't done that in a long, long time. All right, guys, so I got everything opened up, and we're open, ready for business. We've had a few customers come in and talk with us, but for the most part, it's kind of a ghost town. There's a few people walking around, but I don't see any vendors working or doing anything. You know, the guys here from Black Label Performance are just kind of hanging out, joking about, hey, you remember that time you went to a motorcycle rally and nobody showed up? But yeah, hopefully it will get better. They said the ground is still wet. There's still a mist in the air. We're hoping at some point it'll dry up, hopefully earlier than they say it is on the news, or the weather I should say, and it'll get better. All right, guys, it's been quite the slow day. It's about 10 minutes after 2 now. We have not had a single bike in on service. I say that, but there was a young guy that came by with a CBR 500, and I just topped him off with oil. So I poured a little over a quart in there to get him up to the right level. But that was it. It wasn't a real service. I only charged for the quart of oil, not for any of my time. Not that it took any time. It was literally like 3 minutes. The clouds are still out, but the ground is drying up. There's actually people walking around now. Not busy by any means, but it's better. So if you look behind me, I've got Amanda's Triglide up on the lift. She's been having an issue with her clutch starting to slip on her, and she is currently on the road with Talon now to go to Myrtle Beach.
All right. So this is the Myrtle team getting ready to pull out. We just hooked up the Overland. We've got Talon and Jessa ready to go.
And she didn't want to ride her bike with the clutch being bad. So since they were taking the truck, they decided to ride together. So we ordered her a new clutch kit from DP Clutches, and we're going to take it apart and see if we can't replace the friction plates and the steel plates. Now, Amanda's trike is a 2022. And she's got 46,000 miles on it. So the clutch has definitely performed its duties over that period of time, and it's probably just a little bit worn out. Now, Amanda has some things on her bike that the average trike doesn't have. Like, she's got this mid set of boards that's right in front of the outer primary. She's also got these blocks on her floorboards because otherwise her feet don't reach the floorboards. I was able to get the front primary cover bolt out by finagling this a little bit. The bottom one is hitting the emergency brake, and I can't get it all the way out, but I'm wondering once I loosen the rest, I might be able to angle it just enough to get it out. I'm hoping I don't have to pull any of this off. I've got everything loose. Now I'm going to pull out the rest of the bolts and see if I can't weasel this outer primary cover off without having to remove any of this stuff. We'll see. All right, just a quick couple of tips. When I'm removing a primary cover, what I do is I lay down the clean paper towel and I lay all the bolts in order that I took them out. So here's the front one, and then the next one. The one in the middle is actually still right there. So that's why there's a little gap here. And then the 2 on the back, and then the bottom row. And we still got one that is still in right down here. That way, putting the order back together is a lot easier. You've got long bolts, you got short bolts. Depending on the year, that combination will change of your long and your short and remembering where it goes where. Now, most experienced technicians can figure it out and they know where they go. But if you're new and you're trying this for the first time, you don't want to try to put a long bolt into a short hole or a short bolt into a long hole. You want everything to go back the way it's supposed to. Another thing I do is I leave the one center bolt in the top, but I loosen it. You'll see I've got a gap here, and I leave that one there just so that when I tap it with the rubber hammer, it doesn't just fall or drop the cover. So with that one still in, I can tap the cover with a rubber hammer. The whole primary comes loose, but it doesn't fall, it doesn't get scratched. Now I'll take that one out by hand and try to lift the cover out. All right, and the first attempt getting it out was a failure because the clutch basket actually sticks out quite a ways, and I'm hitting this, but I was able to get the derby cover up past this floorboard, but I was hitting this floorboard. Now, I loosened and turned this one out of the way, hoping it would be enough. And if this floorboard wasn't here, this trick would have been fine. But because this one's here, I need this one out of the way so I can come back and up with the primary cover. All right, and that worked. With that floorboard out of the way, I was able to angle it up and move it out without having to remove any of this. So just the 2 bolts on that rear passenger floorboard, problem solved. While I'm in here, I'm looking at my gears, starter gear, compensator. I'm inspecting everything else to make sure everything is good. We're going to be replacing the clutch plates, but I want to make sure there's nothing else going on in here at the same time. All right, and upon inspection, I noticed that her clutch looked like it might have been adjusted a little bit too tight. There wasn't very much free play in it. And the engine is cool. I ran it only long enough to get it up on the lift, and it's been up here half hour, 45 minutes. So it never had a chance to warm up. And it was still a little bit tight, and typically you want to leave a little bit of looseness and a little bit of play on the cold side so that when it heats up, it's got room for expansion. That could have led to the clutch slippage over time, having a little bit of pressure on there. But since we're putting a brand new clutch in, I want to make sure to back off all of the adjustments on the clutch actuation so that we can start from scratch with the new clutch and make sure that everything is right. Right, and of course, I'm only about 20 minutes into this project, and of course, nothing to do all day long, so I start this. Now I got a customer, got a set of love jugs coming in, so I'm gonna walk away from Amanda's bike for a minute and get started on that. All right guys, so I took about an hour and I did the full 3-hole service on this older 03 electric glide, and I also installed the black Mighty Mites on there. All in all, it came out pretty good. Everything went pretty smooth, but now I'm done with it. There's nothing else in line. Let me get back to work on Amanda's clutch. All right, so I have pulled out the clutch springs, the retainer, and the pressure plate. So now we're down to the actual clutch itself. The friction plates, the steel plates that divide the friction plates. Now, I still try to lay everything out neatly as I take it apart. So you see I set all this in an order, and as I take the plates out, I take them off, I flip them over and lay them down. So the first one is the first one off, and it's face down that was face out. And I do that in order every time. That way, if for some reason I do have to reuse something here, I know the order that came out. We kind of match stuff back up. Now, I have no intention of using any of this, but I still just like to look at things. But also here, the second steel plate, if you look, see all those heat marks around the edge where it's turning black and even like a bronzy color? Yeah, the clutch was overheated. It was definitely slipping to cause that. All right, and for those of you that aren't familiar with multi-stack type clutches, some clutches, and most modern Harley Davidsons have this as well as all the sport bikes, the very last friction plate in the stack isn't as thick. If you look at the distance between my index finger and my thumb, how narrow that is compared to this one's almost twice as thick. If you actually hold them up side by side, you'll see that you can see the other one behind it. The reason for that is because there's a spring and a spring seat that goes in at the very bottom of the clutch, and that's really there to kind of help with torque on downshifting and stuff like that. But that spring and spring seat have to be put in a specific manner for it to work properly. So I've got the spring pulled out, and there's kind of a conical bevel to it. I don't know if it shows up on camera. There is a bevel to that. This is not a flat piece. It's pitched like this basically, and the smaller side would go into the engine, the outer side would go out to the clutch, and then there's one more seat in there. We dig it out. All right, so here I have the seat, and the seat is flat. It doesn't have that conical or convex shape to it, but you can see the wear pattern on this side where the spring will actually mate with it. So now that I hold them together, you can kind of see where they don't sit flat. There's that little bit of a gap. but when pressure is applied, that spring will flatten out to give traction. Alright guys, so this kit is called the DPHK. This is from DP Clutches. They also make brake pads and other friction type materials, but this kit comes with an extra plate. It's supposed to be a heavier duty, more solid clutch feel. The one thing you do have to watch out for, there's 2 different styles of friction plates and 2 different styles of steel plates, and they have to go in a very specific order. The instructions are pretty clear on how it is, and when you actually look at the clutch pack, you can see it's pretty obvious which ones are the different ones. We just have to make sure to put them in the right order. It also comes with a heavier duty set of clutch springs, which should give it much better grab. Now, DP says that you can install these clutches without soaking them first. Now, typically I always soak my clutches for at least 30 minutes to an hour before I install them. But they say it's perfectly fine to install these without soaking them. And that sounds a lot cleaner to me, and I've never done it before, but I think we're gonna give it a try and see how it works. Okay, so I have all of my different pieces separated, and here it shows that this is inward towards the clutch basket. So you would want to start with one of the thick clutch plates, and then after that, you'll start alternating the thin steel to the thin friction until you get here, and then you will go to the thick friction, the thick steel up here, and then the last thick friction, and then you put the pressure plate back on top. So it looks as if this clutch system is going to eliminate that spring and spring seat that we were describing just a moment ago. So it's very important that you don't leave that in there, because it will not fit with this clutch kit. It doesn't have the provisions to do so. All right, so I have removed the old clutch from the area so that I don't get things mixed up, and I have the new clutch laid out. Now, the steel plates have got like an anti-corrosion coating on them so that they don't rust while they're sitting on a warehouse shelf or in shipping. And that coating made it very difficult to separate all those plates. So I took a few minutes and I separated them all so that as I go to put this together, it should go nice and easy. All right guys, so I've got the instructions laid out right here. And basically this is pretty simple. You're just gonna start stacking. So number 2 is the thicker clutch plate. So we're gonna slide it in. All right, and then we put in the steel plate. And at this point, we're gonna alternate between the steel and the thinner frictions, one after the other. Just line them up with the grooves and slide them in. Just stack over and over until they're all done. This should only take just a couple of moments to get them all in. All right, and that's the last of all the 1s and 3s. So now we put in the friction plate, labeled number 2. All right, and then the last 2 components will actually go on the pressure plate. So you get that other thick friction disc and that really thick steel disc go on here, and then you put the whole assembly together. Now, that final step can be very tricky because that steel plate will want to fall off of the teeth on the inside of the pressure plate, which makes it very hard to line everything up. Just take your time, go slow, and it'll all work. Now we can put the new springs in with the old keeper and hold the whole thing together. Now, I don't know if it shows up on camera, but the spring to your right is the new spring that came with the DP kit. The spring on the left is the OEM Harley. The diameter of the spring steel itself is a little bit thicker on the new one, and I can tell by squeezing it, it's a whole lot firmer on the new one. So see here, I can just kind of press that down with my thumb. That one takes a whole lot more force to press down. All right, some blue Loctite on each one of those bolts, and we'll put the spring retainer back in. Tighten these up, you do a little at a time, and rotate around so you're not putting one all the way tight without the other. So try to keep somewhat even pressure going all the way around. All right, now just do a visual inspection, make sure everything is seated properly and everything looks good. And if it is good at this point, you will then go in and do your clutch adjustment. So take the adjustment screw in until it just touches and bottoms out. And then you want to back it off about 3/4 of a turn. And then lock the nut down. All right, for some reason my clutch adjustment tool wouldn't fit. So this is designed to go around the nut. Then you can put a wrench on the end so you can torque this while putting the Allen wrench through the center to hold the centerpiece still. For some reason, the adjuster is sticking out just far enough that it's bottoming out on the center of my tool, so I can't get it all the way on over the lock nut. So I just use a wrench and a T-handle instead, and it worked out fine. Now, this is where you want to double check and make sure that that is not tight. So you see I'm grabbing it and wiggling it, and there should be just a little bit of play. You should be able to move it back and forth just a little bit. If there's tension on it, it won't leave room for that expansion when it heats up, and it will cause the clutch plate to lift a little bit in hot situations, which will cause slippage. You don't want that. So that's why that 3/4 of a turn. Some people even go out one full turn. I like to keep it at the smaller side of it. That's what's always worked well for me. All right, at this point, I can readjust the clutch cable and get rid of all the slop that's in the lever. Then we can put all this back together.
Well, hello from Myrtle. We have arrived. It's about 5 o'clock. We've just now got the trailer in place, the truck unpitched, and the canopy up. We're gonna try and go ahead and get the lifts out tonight. Check back in later and let you know how it goes.
All right, well, I fought with the cable adjustment on that for a little bit, but now that the clutch and everything's adjusted, everything's verified working, I'm gonna clean and prep the outer primary cover, put a new gasket on it, put it all back together. Okay, now for the tricky part. I've got both gasket surfaces clean and the new gasket in place hanging on the guide dowels. But remember, I had one bolt that didn't want to come out without having to remove the floorboard and emergency brake assembly. So I've got to try to weasel the primary cover back in and then hold it steady while putting that bolt back into that hole and then seat it, all without disrupting the gasket or damaging the gasket. I need a third hand, but we'll get it done. All right, it was a struggle, but I got it in there, and I have the outer primary in place, just loosely held on by this bolt. That one down there is not even threaded. Now I've got a dab of blue Loctite on all of our other primary bolts. We'll just go through, put them all back in order, and then torque them down in a sequence. All right, all the bolts torqued down, shifter linkage back on. Now ready to fill it back up with some Amsoil primary fluid. All right, all back together, and I took it for a test ride. It seems to be working pretty good now. Just ran around the mall parking lot, didn't have a helmet on or anything, and there is a helmet law here, and I didn't realize that until I was zipping around the parking lot. But at some point I'll have to take it out of the street and give it a real road test. But it feels like it's grabbing really, really good through first, second, and third at least. All right, it's about 7:30. As you can see, it's getting dark, and all of the other vendors have gone home. We are literally the only ones left open, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm hungry. I'm snacking on beef jerky for right now, but I'm hungry, so we're gonna go feed the fat kid.
All right, the final check-in for the day. It's about 8 o'clock. We are done setting up and just came back from the grocery store. And we are about 95% there. Just got some final touches for tomorrow. Till then.
Well, now it is 11 o'clock at night. Taking Diego for his last trip around the mall parking lot before we head off to bed and edit videos and so on and so forth. You know, today was a pretty crappy business day, actually. I serviced one motorcycle other than Amanda's clutch job. In fact, if it wasn't for Amanda's clutch job, we wouldn't have much of a video for you today. Kind of sad, but still pretty crappy weather. It was raining on and off. Never a heavy rain, just that light mist in the air most of the day. Now in the afternoon it dried up, but now, you know, Katie and I went inside and ate. Now I've come out and the mist is in the air again. I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, but there's definitely a mist in the air. And he just wants to eat grass. You know, I guess it's kind of a good thing that Mike wasn't able to make it, because there hasn't been enough work yet to have needed any help. And I feel terrible for the people that are stuck in Asheville or dealing with all the problems in Asheville. I mean, our hearts definitely go out to them. There's a lot of people having a really bad time right now because of the storm. Come on, baby, let's go this way. And it's unfortunately, it's very unfortunate. Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate. Yeah, I'm talking in circles because I'm really tired. I think we're just going to go ahead and end this one here. Hopefully tomorrow's a better day. Tomorrow was Monday. Typically Mondays on a double weekend show aren't that good. But I was surprised to see that there were a number of people that we met today that traveled here for this event. I was thinking it might be just kind of a regional thing, you know, people from the area. But we got people coming up from Georgia, Virginia, I think somebody from Pennsylvania as well. So this event is growing and it is drawing people from further distances, which is good, it's promising. People that are staying for more than just stopping in for the day. So maybe we'll see more people. I'm afraid the weather probably scared some people off. Try not to judge it too soon, but it's definitely not one of our best shows so far. Anyway, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this extremely boring video. And until the next time we see you, keep those engines running.